are gibbons at the Moore Park Teaching Zoo at Moore Park College, and boy do they know how to beat the heat. They're living here in dry chaparral country, but they've got plenty of shade and water and ways to get out of the sun and keep themselves cool and entertained. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, is some strategies that you can use to beat this drought that's happening here in California. Boy, the Santa Ana winds are just beating the crap out of us out here in California. Some plants seem to just love it. All this heat, they just thrive on it, but most of them don't. So I thought I'd show you today some of the strategies I'm using to beat the heat and maybe keep some of them alive. In permaculture, there's a lot of talk about stacking functions. And what that does for you is there are all kinds of things that you can do for one purpose, but do them in such a way that they serve several purposes. Like these extra sturdy tomato cages that I've run from one side of the bed to the other. That way I can use them to prop up plants. I can also drape some bird netting, or in this case, a little sunshade over the top. I planted a Tipuana tepu tree out here in the food forest because it's a nitrogen fixer, and it also grows up nice and tall so that it will eventually it'll be about 40 feet tall up there, and it'll create a canopy that will shade the rest of the food forest from the hottest summertime midday sun. In the wintertime it'll come in kind of sideways over this way, and it won't shade it out. But in the summertime, it'll provide it just enough protection that it needs. But right now, it's not big enough to do the job, so my camp shade will have to do it. Next on the list is mulch, mulch, mulch. You ever been in a forest and you've noticed that there are all kinds of twigs and leaf trash and all kinds of stuff on the ground, and if you dig down, it takes a little bit of digging to get to anything that we call dirt. Well, it turns out that there's an important reason for that. It's actually a major element in maintaining soil health. It insulates the soil. It keeps it from baking in the hot sun, which slows evaporation, and that's all good stuff, right? But it also supports microbiology. There's like this whole fungal network going on. It also provides a home for beneficial insects and animals. We have like alligator lizards and birds all over the place, and so I know there are bugs down in there. So the easiest way to get mulch in these kind of quantities is just to wait until one of your neighbors is getting a tree trimmed and ask the tree trimmer if he'll just dump that load of chips in your driveway. If you try to get the stuff in the bags, well, first of all, it'll take forever, it'll cost a fortune, and you don't know where that stuff's been. If you have something that you don't have time to plant and it's in a pot, that root zone gets really hot when the sun is beating down directly on that pot. So just bury the pot in mulch. Reevaluate the locations on all of your potted plants. These are a lot of starts that I had that aren't ready to go out into their final destination. But I had them in a spot on the corner of the patio where they were just getting blasted. So I moved them inside, and they're much happier in here on a table by the sliding glass door. A Whoville Culture Bed is a great way to conserve water and grow things. It's basically just a pile of wood covered by a pile of dirt, and then you plant things in it. I've combined mine with the swale end of my water catchment system for the food forest. So what happens in this case is when we do get rain, it collects on the upside, on the top of the hill, and it can't get past the Whoville Culture Bed because it's up higher than the rest of the food forest. So the water just stays right there and it percolates down into the ground. Brad Lancaster does a really neat demonstration about how much water you can store in water catchment barrel versus a land system that catches water. Check that out if you get a chance. The plant species you choose makes a big difference in the amount of water that you use and eventually the drought-tolerant ability of your landscape. Here I've used actually desert plants, Palo Verde trees, and this desert cassia, and then I've got a dragon fruit cactus. As soon as that tree is big enough, the cactus will climb up that tree. And all of this happens without me watering it at all. It's much better to have some greenery around your house than not because it soaks up environmental moisture. Still a mess because I just did this, but here's the afternoon sun on our house. Just bakes us. So I planted 2 really good trees. This one is an olive, and I mean it's just made of iron. And the other is a honey locust, and it grows really well. It seems to do just fine in the heat. So I'll let those grow up, and they will eventually shade our house and reduce our air conditioning bill. Normally, I wouldn't recommend planting a tree at a time like this when it's so hot. The roots are already stressed out enough, and you don't want to add transplant shock to it. But those just had to go in. They weren't going to make it in the pots any longer. So this drought in California really underscores the reason why permaculture is important. You know, we've got the sexy parts, we've got the food forest, and yeah, you can go out and just forage your own meal in your backyard, and that's great. But the main thing that permaculture does is it designs resilience into your ecosystem so that a drought like this, well, you can't say it's no problem, but you definitely will have a lot more confidence that you'll be able to weather this, that you'll be able to get through it and without too much damage. I hope you can see how just a few simple steps can make a big difference in terms of protecting the investment of all those plants that you've made and just all the hard work that you've done. Why let that just boil out there in the heat? Also, you should make sure that you take care of your pets and your livestock. At a minimum, they should get more water and more ability to get in the shade. If there's a place where they can go indoors, I mean, like my babies are coming in the air conditioning, so they'll be perfectly fine. And that's where I'm going too. I plan to sit here with a good book and a nice glass of my loquat lemongrass tea and spend the afternoon that way. If you'd like to learn how to make this, by the way, click on this link down here and it'll take you right to it. And hey, thanks for watching and liking and sharing and subscribing. That's how it all moves along. Take care.